My mother made me drive 7 hours every week for years to help her, while my brother lived 10 minutes away and did nothing. But when I discovered the entire $400K inheritance was for him, I cut contact and left them alone. I'm 38 years old. I work in finance. And honestly, I need to get all of this out because I've been carrying this situation for years that has basically been draining my life. And the worst part is, I just found out that everything I did, every sacrifice, every 3-hour drive at dawn, every check I signed, all of that means absolutely nothing to my mother. But let's go step by step, because this story is long and complicated, and I guess I have to start from the beginning so you can understand why I'm so fucking angry and relieved at the same time. My parents divorced when I was like 12 years old. My brother Austin was 8. It was an ugly divorce, one of those where everyone comes out hurt. And my mom, Margaret, kept us. My father basically disappeared from our lives, sent child support when he remembered. But emotionally, he was never present after the divorce. So we grew up being basically just the three of us. My mom working 2 jobs to keep us afloat, and me being the responsible older brother, while Austin was always the baby of the family, the one who could get away with everything. Looking back, I should have seen the signs from back then. But when you're a kid, you don't notice these things, right? I was always the responsible son, the one who got good grades, the one who got scholarships for college, the one who helped with bills when mom couldn't make ends meet. Austin, on the other hand, was the free artist, the dreamer, the one who dropped out of college after 1 semester to pursue. I don't know what project that never worked out. And mom always defended him, always said Austin just needed time to find his way, that I didn't understand his creative spirit. The thing is, I graduated, got a good job, married Nicole 10 years ago. We moved like 3.5 hours away from where mom lives because of my job, and we built a decent life. Austin, on the other hand, stayed in the same city as mom, lives literally 10 minutes from her, never finished his studies, and has been jumping from job to job since then, when he has a job. Like 5 years ago, mom moved to a retirement community. Nothing fancy, but a quiet place where she could live on her pension. I thought she was finally going to have some peace, after years of working so hard. But that's when everything started to get really complicated for me. Turns out living in a retirement community means you constantly need help with things. The air conditioner breaks down, you need to be taken to the doctor, you need help with the computer, with the phone, with literally anything that requires a bit of physical or mental effort. And guess who got the calls? Me. Always me. At first, it didn't bother me that much. I mean, it's my mother. Of course I'm going to help her. But it started becoming more and more frequent. She'd call me on a Saturday morning saying her washer was leaking and she needed me to come fix it, and I'd literally drive 3.5 hours, fix the washer or call a technician and stay with her until they arrived, and then drive another 3.5 hours back. One Sunday, she called me because she couldn't get her TV to work, and when I got there, it turned out she'd just accidentally unplugged the HDMI cable. 6 hours of my life, plus gas, plus wear and tear on the car, all to plug in a cable. And meanwhile, Austin, who lives 10 damn minutes away, was never available. He always had an excuse, that he was working, that he had plans, that he wasn't feeling well, whatever. The worst part is that mom never asked him for help with the same urgent tone she used with me. When she called me, it was like the world was ending, but when she mentioned asking Austin for something, it was like, oh no, I don't want to bother him. He's very busy. Busy? Busy? I had a full-time job that required 50 to 60 hours a week, a wife, responsibilities, and yet I was supposed to drop everything to drive 7 hours round trip every time she needed to change a light bulb. But of course, Austin was too busy finding his purpose in life or whatever he was doing. And then the money thing started. I found out, and this was like 3 years ago, that Austin was constantly asking mom for money. They weren't small amounts either. We're talking about $500 here, $800 there, sometimes even $1,000 at once. It was always an emergency. He was always going to pay it back soon, and mom always gave it to him. The problem is that mom lived on a fixed pension. It's not like she had money to spare, and every time she gave money to Austin, she'd come up short for her own needs. And then what happened? She'd call me. The first time I realized it was when she called me saying she didn't have enough money to pay a medical bill for like $400. I obviously gave her the money without thinking twice. She's my mother and she had to go to the doctor. I wasn't going to leave her without medical care. But like a month later, I found out through a casual conversation with her that she'd just lent Austin $600 for I don't know what. And that's when I started connecting the dots. I asked her directly how much money she'd given Austin in the last year, and after a lot of pressing, she admitted it had been like $8,000. $8,000. And I had given her like 3,000 inches the same period to cover her emergencies. That really weren't emergencies. They were financial holes caused by giving money to my brother. I tried to talk to her about this. I told her mom, "You can't keep giving Austin money when you yourself don't have enough to live on." And she told me that Austin needed it, that he was going through a tough time, that I didn't understand how hard it was for him. And I thought, what about me? I also went through tough times. Everyone goes through tough times, but I never asked my mother, who can barely support herself, for thousands of dollars. But no, I was fine. I had a good job. I didn't need help. The problem is that apparently being responsible and hardworking meant I didn't deserve any kind of consideration. Nicole, my wife, started noticing that every weekend I was driving to see Mom, or sending her money, or stressing about some new crisis. She'd tell me, "Chris, you need to set boundaries. This isn't sustainable," but I felt guilty, you know? She's my mother. How am I going to tell her no when she needs help? But Nicole was right. The situation was consuming me. I was exhausted all the time, spending like $500 to $600 a month on gas and tolls just to go help her, plus the money I gave her directly, plus the emotional toll of knowing my brother did nothing, and I had to compensate for both of us. And what hurt me the most, what really broke my heart, was that Mom never seemed to appreciate what I did. Every time I went to help her, it was like it was my obligation, like it was no big deal. But when Austin did something, any minimal thing, like bringing her a bag of groceries or calling to ask how she was, Mom acted like he'd won the Nobel Prize for sons. She talked about him with so much admiration. "My Austin is so considerate. My Austin always worries about me," while I was literally paying her medical bills and driving hours to change her air conditioner filter. The straw that broke the camel's back was like a year and a half ago. Austin called me directly, not Mom, me, asking me to lend him $2,000. He said he had an incredible business opportunity but needed initial capital, and he'd pay me back in 3 months with interest. I was so shocked that he had the nerve to ask me for money directly that at first I didn't know what to say. And then something in me broke and I said, "Really? Are you really asking me for money when you can't even drive 10 minutes to help Mom when she needs it?" I told him everything. I told him I knew he was taking money from Mom, that I was the one who ended up covering her financial emergencies, that I was tired of being the only son who actually cared about her while he only showed up when he needed something. He got super defensive, started yelling at me that I didn't understand his situation, that he also helped Mom in his own way, that it wasn't all about money. And I told him, "Oh yeah? When was the last time you went to her house to help her with something? When was the last time you gave her money instead of asking for it?" He went quiet and then hung up. He didn't talk to me for like 2 months after that. It was after that call that I started setting some small boundaries. If Mom sent me a message asking for help with something non-urgent, I'd wait a day or two before responding. If she called me early on a Saturday, I'd let it go to voicemail and call her back later. Nothing drastic, just small steps to reclaim some of my life. And you know what? The world didn't end. Turns out when I wasn't immediately available, somehow things resolved themselves, or Austin had to step in, or Mom discovered it really wasn't that urgent after all. But then we get to the event that changed everything. Like 6 months ago, Carolyn, a friend of Mom's from the retirement community, called me one day. She and I had always had a good relationship. I'd known her for years, and she told me she needed to talk to me about something important. We agreed to meet at a coffee shop halfway between our houses, and when I arrived, I could see she was nervous. She told me, "Christopher, I don't know if I should be telling you this, but I feel like you deserve to know, because what's happening isn't fair." Turns out Mom had been talking about her will with her friends, and Carolyn had heard that Mom was planning to leave everything, absolutely everything, to Austin. The house, which was already paid off, her savings, her retirement plan, everything. I wasn't going to get anything. Nothing. Carolyn told me she'd been debating whether to tell me or not, but that it seemed tremendously unfair after seeing everything I did for Mom, while Austin never showed up. Honestly, I was paralyzed. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. My whole life being the responsible son, all these years sacrificing myself, spending my money, my time, my energy, driving hours every weekend, paying her bills, solving her problems, and at the end of it all, I was going to receive exactly nothing. While Austin, who had done less than the minimum, who had taken thousands of dollars from her, who lived 10 minutes away and couldn't even bother to visit her regularly, he was going to get everything. I thanked Carolyn for telling me, although part of me wished I didn't know. I drove home on autopilot. I don't remember anything about the trip. When I got there, Nicole immediately knew something was wrong. I told her everything, and she was as furious as I was devastated. She told me I needed to confront Mom directly, that I couldn't keep living in ignorance of this massive betrayal. But I needed time to process. You know, I still had hope that maybe Carolyn had misunderstood something, that my mother couldn't really be planning to do that after everything that had happened. But the truth has a way of confirming itself when you don't want it to. Like a week later, I was at Mom's house. I'd gone because supposedly her water heater was making a weird noise. Turns out it was completely normal. And while I was there, I saw some papers on her table. I wasn't snooping. They were literally right there on the kitchen table, and I recognized the lawyer's letterhead. Without thinking much about it, I read them. And there it was. Black and white, her will updated 3 months ago. Everything, for Austin. In the explanation section, it said something like, Christopher is financially stable and has a good life, while Austin will need more support. I sat there in her kitchen while she was in the bathroom, looking at these papers, and I felt like I'd been emptied out inside. It wasn't the inheritance itself. I never cared about money that way. It was what it meant. It was the definitive confirmation that everything I had done never mattered, that she valued Austin more despite everything, or maybe precisely because he did nothing and I did everything. It was as if my responsibility had disqualified me from deserving any kind of recognition or gratitude. When Mom came back from the bathroom, I couldn't keep it in. I asked her directly about the will. She went pale. Started stammering something about how she'd wanted to talk to me about that she could explain it. And I just told her, explain to me then how it's fair that Austin, who has been draining you financially for years, who lives 10 minutes away and never helps you, who constantly puts you in difficult financial situations that I end up solving, gets everything while I get nothing. And she told me exactly what the will said, that I was fine, that I had a good job and a good life, and that Austin needed it more. I told her, Mom, Austin needs it more because he spent his adult life making irresponsible decisions and expecting others to rescue him. Mainly you and me. It's not that he needs it more, it's that he's never learned to manage on his own because there's always been someone there to save him. And she responded that I didn't understand, that Austin was more sensitive, that life had been harder on him. I felt something break inside me at that moment. I told her it was fine, that it was her money and she could do whatever she wanted with it, but that it was also my life and my time, and that I wasn't going to keep sacrificing myself for someone who clearly didn't value those sacrifices. She started crying, told me I was being cruel. How could I say those things? That I was her son, and I was supposed to take care of her. And I told her that Austin was also her son and lived 10 minutes away, that maybe it was time for him to step up for once in his life. I left that night and didn't come back for weeks. I didn't answer her calls immediately. I didn't run every time she had a crisis. I told Nicole I was done, that I wasn't going to keep being the fool who does all the work while someone else takes the credit and the reward. And for the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. Yes, I felt guilty. The guilt was there constantly, but there was also a sense of liberation. Of course, Mom started calling more frequently when she realized I wasn't going to keep responding like before. She left dramatic voicemails about how she needed me, how there was an emergency, how she couldn't believe I was abandoning her. But I held firm. When there was something truly urgent, like once when she had to go to the emergency room, of course I went. I'm not a monster. But the non-urgent things, the constant favors, the emotional manipulations, that was over. And then, like 3 months ago, My Aunt Deborah called me. She lives in another state but keeps in touch with the family. She asked me what was going on between Mom and me, because Mom had been telling the whole family that I had abandoned her, that I didn't help her with anything, that I even refused to take her to the doctor when she was sick. Basically, she was painting this story where I was the terrible son who had left his poor mother alone in her old age, without mentioning, of course, the years I spent running to help her with every little thing, or the money I gave her, or the countless hours I sacrificed. That was what finally made me explode. It was one thing for her not to appreciate what I did. It was quite another for her to actively lie to the family to make me look like the villain. I told Deborah the complete truth, every detail, and offered to show her proof, all the text messages, the gas receipts, the bank transfers, everything. She was shocked, said she had no idea I'd been doing so much. Because Mom never mentioned it, she only complained that I was never there when she needed me. Deborah apparently talked to other family members. Because suddenly, I started getting messages from cousins and uncles asking for my version of the story. And I gave it to them, with proof. I sent them screenshots of the hundreds of messages from Mom asking for help, dated photos of me at her house fixing things, receipts of payments I made for her, everything. And little by little, the family started seeing the truth, that Mom and Austin had been manipulating the narrative to make me look bad and justify their behavior. Austin tried to do damage control, started posting things on social media about how hard it was taking care of Mom by himself. By himself? Really? But several family members who now knew the truth called him out on his lies publicly. It was gratifying in a bitter way to see the truth finally come to light, but it was also exhausting and painful. This was my family. We were supposed to take care of each other, and instead there were lies, manipulation, and toxic favoritism. I made the final decision like 2 months ago. I sent Mom a message telling her I needed space, that I wasn't going to keep being part of this dysfunctional dynamic where my brother and I were treated with completely different standards, despite our actions clearly showing who really cared. I told her that when she was ready to acknowledge the truth and treat me with the basic respect I deserved after years of sacrifices, we could talk. But until then, I needed distance for my own mental health. With Austin, it was simpler. I sent him a single message saying I hoped the inheritance money was worth losing his brother, and that I hoped he could live with himself knowing he built his financial future on the backs of our mother and my work. Then I blocked him on everything. But here's the weird thing about guilt. Even when you know you're doing the right thing, it's still there bothering you. I couldn't stop thinking about Mom being alone, even though it was her fault, even though Austin was 10 minutes away. So I did something Nicole suggested. I set up an automatic monthly transfer to her account, enough to cover her extra basic needs, but nothing extravagant, completely anonymous. She doesn't know it comes from me. She probably thinks it's some banking error in her favor or something. It's not really for her, it's for me, so I can sleep at night knowing that at least her basic needs are covered. Now I'm here, several months after cutting contact, and honestly, I feel better than I have in years. Nicole and I are better. I have more time for myself, for my own hobbies and goals, and I'm not constantly stressed about Mom's next crisis. The guilt is still there. I'm not going to lie. Sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night, wondering if I did the right thing. But then I remember the will. I remember years of being taken for granted. I remember the lies she told the family about me, and I know, yes, I did the right thing. The family is divided now. Some understand my position and support me. Others think I should be the bigger son and forgive because she's my mother. But the thing is, forgiveness doesn't mean letting them keep hurting you. I can forgive and still maintain my boundaries, and that's exactly what I'm doing. Last week I saw on Facebook, because even though I blocked Austin, we still have mutual friends who post things, that Mom had to ask Austin for help with something at her house. The post from one of her neighbors mentioned that finally, her other son was helping her with the yard. I felt a weird mix of satisfaction and sadness. Satisfaction because finally Austin had to do something. Sadness because it had to come to this for him to step up. But those aren't my problems anymore. I did my part, more than my part, for years. Now it's someone else's turn. Nicole asks me sometimes if I'd ever consider reconciling with Mom, and honestly, I don't know. Maybe someday, if she truly understands what she did and is willing to acknowledge it and change the dynamic, but I'm not going to hold my breath waiting for that. For now, I'm focusing on my own life, on my marriage, on building the future I want without being constantly drained by the demands and lack of appreciation from others. And that, for me right now, is enough.